Welcome to the Business Blast Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Wagner. This episode is brought to you by Authors Unite. Authors Unite provides you with the support you need to finish your book. Best part is, after you finish your book, they take care of the entire publishing and marketing process 100% for you. So, if you want to become a successful author, make sure to check out authorsunite.com. Now, let's jump into the episode. All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Business Blast Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Wagner. Today, I have Paul Hutchings with us. He is an expert home business entrepreneur and founder of the Home Business Academy, where he helps both affiliate and network marketers learn to recruit, sell, and market online. So welcome to the show, man.
Hey, Tyler. Thanks for having me, and hello to the Business Blast community. Glad to be here.
Yes, man. Pumped to have you here. We'll dive in, to the first one, Paul. The first one that I have for you is, what is the best story from your life that has an underlying valuable message?
Such a great question, and happy to share. So, yeah, the best story from my life that has a great underlying valuable message goes back to when I had my very first breakthrough big breakthrough in business. And kind of leading up to it, basically what happened was I had failed in 14 different businesses. I had quit my job because I thought, maybe my job has held me back. So I quit my job, coming off of 14 different business failures. I'm married. I've got, kids at home, living in a single wide trailer house, and things are just not working. Like, I quit my job and I was like, okay, this is going to be the magic secret. I'm going to go with this full time. And what actually happened was, over the next 6 months, my income went down. So I get to the end of the 6 months period and I'm like, oh no, like, what am I going to do? Right. So there was one night I was in the back room of this trailer house that I was living in, and I was putting two of my youngest kids to bed, read them their bedtime stories, tucked them in, and there I was, just a dad, realizing that I was failing and having this fear that I was just, not doing what I was supposed to do. I wasn't providing for my family. I started to cry as I looked at those two little kids, and I knelt down by the side of their bed, and I threw a Hail Mary. I prayed to God. I was like, what I've been doing for the last several years of my business career is not working. What can I do to make this work? And I remember having this distinct impression. I didn't hear a voice or anything, but just had this feeling that I needed to begin a very serious study of the book Think and Grow Rich, and not just read it, but actually do what the book taught me to do. And it was strange because I'd heard that many times. I'd read the book actually several times before, but usually what I do is I'd read the book and I'd say, oh, this is a great book. And then I'd throw it up on the shelf and I'd say, all right, where's the next one? And I never did apply what it taught. And so after this prayer, what I did is I started to study that book, fold down the corners, highlight the passages. And there was one specific exercise that it teaches to do, and that is to have a definite purpose. And then he also gives you this self-confidence formula that he says you want to repeat every day out loud. And so what I would do is I would go outside my trailer house after the kids were sleeping and my wife was settling down to bed, and I would walk up and down my driveway, and I would just be beneath the Idaho stars, and I would repeat this vision with this self-confidence formula. And what happened to me is, after a few weeks, first month or two of doing this consistently, I started to notice a change come over me. And the change was, I started to go from a state of hoping that my business would work, praying that my business would work, to actually having this deep faith to where I knew it was going to work. And I love to share the quote from Jim Rohn. He said, a lot of people say faith, a lot of people say radiation doesn't, some people say faith doesn't exist because you can't see it, you can't smell it, you can't touch it. But he said that would be like saying radiation doesn't exist. He says we know radiation exists because it has an effect, and it's the same with faith. And so I started to develop this faith in myself, and 6 months later, the exact amount of money that I'd been seeing in my mind and proclaiming as my vision, minus a $2 check processing fee, showed up in my life. And I was just like, whoa, this is crazy. So yeah, that's my favorite story. And hopefully there was a good lesson in there.
Dude, there was. That's amazing, man. And that is one of the best books out there. So it's really cool to just see that for you. It really worked. So that's awesome, man. Thank you for sharing that with us. The next one I have for you, Paul, is what is the most valuable piece of information we should know that's within your expertise or industry?
So that's another great question. And I'll go back to, I learned this from one of my very first mentors, and this is super applicable in my particular field of expertise, but I also think it's extremely applicable really in anything that anyone's doing in business. And that is this. One of my first mentors said, Paul, if you want to be successful in this business, you want to become a student of human nature. And that was many, many years ago. And when he first told me that, I didn't really understood what he was meaning by it, but I always remembered it and I tried to apply it. And over the years, I've come to realize that understanding human nature is really a key foundation for success in anything that you do. And there are some things that I think all of us humans, we're alike in certain ways, right? And so that's what human nature is. It's like understanding that for the most part, we are all very, very similar. And just give you just like one little example recently from my life. My son and I, we went to visit some relatives here this last weekend, and we were in their living room. And while we were there, my relatives, they were like, hey, we want to show you these pictures of our cabin. And we want to show you these pictures of all these cool pictures we've been taking. And hey, we want to walk you outside and show you this new purchase we made. And so like we sat and visited with these relatives for probably like 45 minutes. And we hardly said a thing about our lives, but they were so excited to tell us all about their lives. And when we left the visit, I was talking to my 12-year-old son and I said, now, Caden, what can you learn from that visit? And we just talked a little bit about how one aspect of human nature is that people typically care about what they care about, and they're happy to share that. And so if you can kind of understand that and work with it, you'll be really, really good at building relationships and getting rapport. And that just helps with all aspects of business.
Absolutely. I agree. And it could tie in, but the next one I have for you is what is your best piece of overall business advice? So not necessarily industry specific.
Yeah, another great question. I think my best piece of advice overall for business is to find a need and fill it. I think a lot of times we make the mistake of, hey, just find something that you're passionate about. And I do think passion is important, because if you're not passionate about something, you're probably going to have a hard time staying in the game long enough to make it work. But you can be passionate about something, but if no one else has a need or a desire for that need to be filled, then you're going to have a hard time making money with it. So I would say find a need and fill it. And then if possible, find a need in the market that intersects with something that you're passionate about.
And if you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would that be?
That would be to, if it were possible, to be more clear about my future before I decided to go to college. And I say that because we actually, my wife and I, we had such a low interest in our student debt. We weren't in any hurry to pay it off, and we just sent off the last payment 2 weeks ago. And
Congrats.
I'm 39 years old, and that's the only debt we had left. We paid off our house before my college loans, and I was like, man, did going to college really help me with my current profession? And it really didn't help me that much. And so if I could have been, and I try to teach this to my kids, like college is great as long as what you're going to college for is kind of going to help you with your overall purpose in life. So
yeah, I agree, man. And then kind of going down a little bit of a different path. In your opinion, what is the key to happiness?
Well, I would have to say, if you know it, I want it, because I'm still looking for it myself. I mean, I have some happiness and stuff, but yeah, I don't know if I have the only secret or the holy grail, but I will offer one great piece of advice that I think is helpful. This actually comes from Napoleon Hill's last book, Grow Rich with Peace of Mind. He said he had this voice come inside of his mind one time that said, learn this lesson and learn it well. The key to find happiness in life, the key to happiness in life is learning to help others find it. And I think there's a lot of truth in that, like being valuable, contributing, helping other people's lives be happy. I think that's a great step anyway in the right direction.
And what is, you may have already kind of said it with Think and Grow Rich, but what is the best book that you've read, and what was the number one thing you learned from that?
So I'm going to give you a different one from Think and Grow Rich, although I love that book. But another one that I really like is Napoleon Hill's Law of Success. This was actually the first book he wrote before he wrote Think and Grow Rich, and it has like 16 principles for success. And one of the reasons that I love that book is because it shows that there is sort of like this underlying structure or format or roadmap to success with principles that can be emulated and duplicated. So love that book for that reason.
And what is your favorite quote and why?
So I'm going to quote Napoleon Hill again. His one of my favorite quotes from him is, "In every apparent setback lies the seed of an equal or greater advantage." And one of the reasons that I love that quote is because it seems that in business there are always challenges, that come up, and some are small, some are big. But he has this quote where he says, "In every setback lies the seed of an equal or greater advantage." And I found that to be true. And some of my biggest business failures, where I thought, like, man, the world has just come crashing down, as I look back on those, there was always something that was so much better waiting for me on the other side of that experience. And so I don't know if it's just that that's a fundamental truth of life that's been written into the fabric of reality, or if it's just a way to utilize your perception to find the good. But either way, it helps me to always just find the good in whatever challenges, come about. And I think that's really necessary for anyone who's in entrepreneurship.
Yes. Dude, thank you so much for coming on. The last one I have for you before we let you go is, where is the best place for our audience to find you online?
Yeah, great question. And thanks for the opportunity to throw that out there, Tyler. You can find me on Facebook, search me out, Paul Hutchings, or my blog at paulhutchings.net. That's net for networker.
Perfect, man. Thanks again.
Hey, thank you. Have a good one.
The podcast you just heard was published with Anchor. Got something you want to say to the creator of this show? Send them a voice message using the Anchor app, free for iOS and Android.